Hi, and welcome to the Passionistas Project Podcast. We're Amy and Nancy Harrington, and we'd like to start by thanking our newest patron, DJ Big Mono. If you enjoy listening to the Passionistas Project Podcast, please consider becoming a patron. Just a small donation of $1 a month can help us keep the project going, and you'll get rewards like buttons, access to premium content, and invites to Passionistas Project events. Today we're talking to Liz Lachman, independent filmmaker and musician. Liz's new short film Pin-Up premiered in April at the Outshine Film Festival in Miami and is playing the festival circuit. So please welcome to the show, Liz Lachman.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
What is the one thing you're most passionate about?
My latest passion is fencing. I did it as a kid, and then I did it in my early 30s, and I recently took it up again, and I'm very excited about it. It's cool. It allows me to not think. And I find that not thinking is very good for me. So that's I'm really excited about fencing, foil fencing.
What's the difference foil fencing and what other fencing is?
Epee and sabers, different weapons, different rules.
What drew you to that?
It's this thing about gut instinct and acting without thought. Thought gets in the middle of everything and it wrecks everything. It's like if I don't listen to my gut, I get in trouble. And I often find myself trying to solve a problem by thinking about it, and then I'm on a squirrel wheel. Someone told me once that your gut is the boss, and your brain is the secretary. And your gut says what to do, and then your brain does it, gets it done, figures out how to get it done. But if you let your brain make the decisions, then you just go around and around and around. It's a mess. I find that fencing is that thing where you just have to act. Brain just gets out of the way because you don't have time for thinking. So I'm practicing.
You started your career in music, so tell us about your early years as a musician.
15 years old. My first job singing in Detroit was with a big band. I was a big jazz, big band kid and didn't really fit in with they were all listening to rock and roll. And I thought Led Zeppelin was a person. So I didn't know any, but I knew who George Benson was, the jazz guitarist, before he ever sang Masquerade, so they didn't know that. But yeah, there was a little bit of a divide there. So my first singing was big band music with the Eddie Santini Big Band. So I did that, and then I moved to New York, and I sang jazz in Detroit for a while, and then I got into singing more pop music and then writing music, and eventually moved out here and ended up writing music for television and wrote for a couple soap operas. That's where the Emmy Award came in. And then became a music editor. So music editing was a money gig for me. It's not really much music as much as a lot of, at the time, at least I got into working for Disney, and I got into a lot of animation, which actually fit me perfectly because I'm a big comic book animation person. So there was a lot of editing. Not much music going on. But it allowed me to do what I wanted to do with my free time, which paid well enough that I had enough free time to, follow my music career.
What did you get creatively out of writing music?
I'll tell you, there were a number of times when I realized that music was coming through me, not from me. And that was a really interesting realization. When I had to work it, that's one thing. But I recognized kind of early on, like when I first started writing music, I thought, well, I understand poetry and lyric and all that, but I wasn't sure that I could actually write melody. I discovered that when I stopped trying and I just listened, there was already melody there. And that has been through all the creative work I've done, again, stop thinking, stop trying, and it's there already, and all I have to do is listen and then allow it. And that's been the most sort of organic and authentic and wonderful stuff I've created in either music or writing or filmmaking or anything, is when I stop trying to create and just listen. It's been interesting. It's already there.
Are you a self-taught musician or did you have training?
I went to music school for a very short time, University of Michigan, and in those days, and I don't know how it is now, but jazz was like not okay. It was opera, 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 and classical music, and they had a reputation to uphold, and it didn't gel so well, so I left and came out to LA for a while before, and then I moved to New York. I kind of bounced around, you know, so I'm not self-taught though. Yeah. That would be amazing. I'm always in awe of people who are self-taught musicians. It's incredible.
What led you from your music career to your film career?
Age. Yeah, I started aging out, and it was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this thing where they're like, what does she look like? You know, and where it didn't matter quite as much what the music was. And with screenplay writing, they didn't say, I love this screenplay, what does the writer look like? So it was a huge weight off, you know. So that helped. The age thing helped. I got so frustrated with the business of music, I just couldn't quite figure it out, so.
What was your first film?
Getting to Know You was a short film I did. It starred Dana Delaney and Ian Gomez and Elizabeth Keener, Ann Ramsey, Megan Kavanaugh, who, I don't know if you recall, she was in A League of Their Own. Ann Ramsey was in Mad About You, and Elizabeth Keener has been in a number of things since, The L Word, and, well, obviously Ian and Dana. But that was a little gay romantic comedy, so I did that, and that did really well at festivals. I was very spoiled with what happened with that film because I got like a number of awards, film festival awards, and I thought, oh, this is cool, I love doing this, you know. Didn't realize that's not always how it goes. So that was the first one. Somebody said to me, well, how did you like directing? And I said, well, it's good to be king. It's like, that was interesting. So it was fun.
When you made that first film, what was the creative energy that you got out of that as opposed to music?
It's similar because you end up, then you go in the studio and you add different, you know, different sounds, and then you sing and everything gets layered. And by the end of it, it's a very different product. So you've created this world sonically. When you're dealing with film, it's a very similar trajectory. It's more than sonic. It's visual as well. So it's both, and it's amazing. The more people you work with, they bring their expertise and their artistic ideas, and it's cool. It's really wonderful. Each time I've ended up with something better than what I thought it was going to be or what I had imagined. So it's just wonderful to have other people come on board and add and work with, you know, talented people. It's cool.
Talk about the importance of having women directing films, and if you think there are more opportunities these days.
I think it's really important for women to direct because they're telling stories from their point of view. We have all been raised with a point of view of men in everything. We don't even realize it. I'm talking about even what we wear. Who is making the fashion decisions? Who is deciding what is sexy? It's men. Women are not deciding. What men are deciding what women wear, what women smell like, shaving their legs, all these things that are just so random, which we accept as everyday, and then women think, yeah, that's right, that's what sexy is. But women haven't made those decisions. So it's to the point where you can't even back up to a memory of when it wasn't that way. And I think it's very important that women make films and write books and not just for women. Like this idea of chick flick, it drives me crazy. Men drag their dates to, you know, their action adventure films, which by the way I love. So I don't want to start separating by gender, but they drag them and the women are expected to go along and love it. But guys are like, I don't want to go see a chick flick. Why? It's interesting to have depth and emotion and all that stuff that women bring, and women look at stories and situations very differently from men, and I think it's very important to balance that. So when, you know, people are raising children, the kids have an opportunity to have two sides that it's not just one world, or culturally one world, because obviously things are different in other countries. But I think it's very important to have women writing and directing.
Do you find that you have certain themes that run throughout your projects?
I did. For a while I did. I found that I was very anti-organized religion. I have a number of screenplays where I'm just like railing against the man. I don't know, it's not really the man. But that there's something about being controlled that I do not like. I have a number of instances in my life where that type of thing happened. So I write about it, and I write about, I have written a lot about these kind of cultural mores that I question. I question some of these things, and I find a lot of people don't question them, so I like to kind of shake it up a little. So I did write a lot about that. The last screenplay I've been writing about psychology and my mother. It's very frightening, and I didn't realize I was doing it, which is so funny. So that's been revealing itself as I have made this short film. It's been so revealing. I had no idea some of these things were right there in front of me.
What made you finally realize that that's what it
different
was?
things, like I named the character's name started with an L. I gotta tell you, this is hilarious. I named my character's last name is Freeman. Okay, my therapist's last name is Freeman. Didn't realize it. That's cray-cray. I did get the therapist after I wrote the screenplay, but right? How did I happen to choose? That's just crazy. That's crazy talk. Anyway, so, that stuff like that is crazy. Anyway, I didn't realize I was writing a lot about my own ideas when I was writing this pinup thing.
Where did the film premiere, and what do you have planned for it next?
It played Miami, the Outshine Miami Festival, and then it played Newport Beach Film Festival. And we'll see what other festivals. I'm not sure yet. We just started. And I made this short as a proof of concept for the feature, which I wrote first. And so hopefully trying to get the feature made. So that's next. Just working on those kinds of things. It does offer some great roles for actresses. So I'm looking forward to that part of it. I'm looking forward to that because I recognize that the people that have read it, actresses that have read it, have been very drawn to the roles. So that's been great. The short stars Angela Sarafian and Christina Chang. And Christina is in The Good Doctor, and Angela is in Westworld. And also Michelle Bonilla, and who is from ER originally. She was in my first film, Getting to Know You. So people who really know what they're doing in acting is who I was working with this film. It was really lovely.
How do you describe your directing style?
I tend to work inside out. This is my style as a person. I approach things, apparently, I have found out, from internal. What is the feeling of something? What is the deeper meaning of something? I don't want to tell actors what to do, because they know better their craft than I do, for sure. And so I want to try to inspire them from the inside to do something that they feel fits the character. So I tend to start there. Not all actors do that. So it's been very interesting learning how to work differently than I feel comfortable working. So that's been education.
As an independent filmmaker, what's your typical day like?
If I'm working on a specific project, I'll either do some research, reading, writing, not arithmetic, it's not my thing. But that's, so I sort of fashion my day that way. I try to get my work done in the morning and in the early afternoon, because by the time, then I do errands, then I want to get out of the house, clear my head, come back. I used to be a real night person. I still am. I used to work a lot at night, like after 11 p.m. And I can still do that. Like if Susan's out of town, I will definitely stay up till 3 in the morning and do work.
Do you ever get creative block?
There are a million stories. I've got 3 or 4 things I want to work on at once. I don't know what to choose first. That's been my biggest problem, is like I'll start on one thing and I go, oh, this is great, and then something else will show up. So if I'm not feeling it for one, I go to the other, or I'll read, or, I'm a big comic book collector, so there's always a comic book to check out. And it's all stimulation, I probably, as soon as I say this out of my mouth, of course, I'll get blocked, but no, I don't get bored. It's not my thing. I will tell myself jokes if I need that much going on, so yeah, that just doesn't happen to me, luckily.
What's your secret to a rewarding life?
Every day I have to remind myself how lucky I am, because otherwise I can get, again, I start to do, oh, I'm not this, I'm not that, and the people I know are this and they're that, and I haven't done this yet, and I always thought I'd be that. And that is the opposite of rewarding life. And that just takes me down a black hole, and it's very hard to come out from that. It takes sometimes a couple days to kind of dig out emotionally, and it's very unhealthy. So what I try to do, and it's, again, I have to remind myself, this doesn't come naturally. I have to wake up and think about how lucky, what are the good things. I have to look for beauty. And there's a lot of beauty in life. And I have to, and everyone, look, even if it's something simple like, oh, look at the flower. Oh, look at the pretty bird. That is not natural for me. So I had to stop watching TV, the news, all that stuff. I couldn't have made my short film, the pinup, I couldn't have made it if I had continued to look at MSNBC, for example. I just had to stop. Not that I disagree with what they're saying, but it's just too agitating, and it makes me look at the negative constantly. And I had to start looking at the positive, and that allowed me to get creative, to really concentrate, fill my atmosphere with creativity, rather than, oh my God, what's happening now, and all that stuff. So that has been a major shift. Made a huge difference in my life, is to stop. And actually, in the beginning, Susan was very angry because she would be listening to all that stuff on the radio coming home, and she would go, oh my God, did you hear what this person said this time? Shall remain nameless. And I'm like, honey, I don't want to hear it. She'd be like, wait, but, no, I don't want to hear it. And she had like nobody to talk to, I said, just call your friends and tell them, because I don't want the negative stuff. I have to control this. I have to control this. Oh, look at the pretty flowers. Oh, look at how funny the dog looks, or whatever it was. And trying to just fill my energetic space with positivity and beauty. And that helps.
We're Amy and Nancy Harrington, and you're listening to the Passionistas Project podcast and our interview with filmmaker Liz Lachman. Keep an eye out for her short film, Pinup, at a festival near you. Now here's more of our conversation with Liz. Do you have a mantra that you live by?
No. I have a problem with rules. I don't like to be told what to do. I have a problem with cops. I have a problem with authority in general. And when someone says, here's a mantra, I feel hemmed in by it. It starts to rule and then I get angry. So I also have a problem with anger. So I tend to go by my feeling, as opposed to, again, inside out, as opposed to outside in. For me, a mantra, or anything by another name, comes from outside in. And now I'm imposing something on myself. And even if it comes from me to me, I start to feel like, screw you, who are you to tell me what to do? And then I start doing stupid things. So just to, mess with myself. So I notice that the kinds of things where I have lots of freedom to do and think whatever I want are very helpful. And so I don't give myself a rule. I don't give myself a mantra. What I do is I check in and go, how am I feeling? Oh, I'm not feeling so good. Well, what can I do to feel better? As opposed to, oh, if you just do your mantra, see how, then I use my mantra like a club. You're like, you're an idiot. You didn't do your mantra today. I do check in with my emotions more than daily, almost hourly, sometimes every 20 minutes, because, that's my ruler. That's going to cause me to think certain ways by what I'm feeling. And so I want to know what's going on.
Do you have a lesson that you've learned as a filmmaker that sticks with you?
I've been going through a lot of lessons lately in my life. And most of it is about knowing who I am and what I want, and having the guts to go ahead and try for it. Filmmaking is not easy because you need other people to do it. And so but yet I notice if I go ahead and take a step forward and try this and try that and, see what comes, be open, creatively and otherwise, and see what comes to me and take that path and try it. It's good, at least I don't say, gee, I wonder what would have happened. So it's not exactly through filmmaking, but I've reached a certain place in my life where that has become very important, to check in with myself a lot. What is it I feel? What is it I want? As opposed to, well, I don't want to make waves, so I'm not going to say what I want. Or, oh, I could go along with that, so I don't want to make waves. That has been a lot of my life. And so now saying, wait a minute, what do I want? No, you know what? I'm going to stand up and say what I want, and then I'll see what happens. But, it's necessary, because then I feel more like I'm alive, I'm in the present moment. And as opposed to sitting back and being safe, but I have not felt happy going the route of safe. So I'm now trying the route of unsafe, but saying what I feel.
Is there something you know now that you wish you knew when you first started out?
They always say youth is wasted on the young. Ugh, is that ever true? Wow. There's just a perspective. There's just a perspective. Life experience is really valuable. And things change as each decade. And what you care about completely shifts around. So I don't think, it's funny, you can't give advice to someone who's a different age, because they need to figure it out for themselves. That's what that decade's for, and they're going to do what they're going to do. I'm amazed I'm even still alive with the things that I did. I don't even know how that happened. And so, so yeah, there's lots of things, but who would ever listen to anybody, your parents or anyone older than you, telling you anything? Again, there's that thing, don't tell me what to do. By the way, when you have that, it's not easy being in a relationship, because there's a lot of rules about relationships. And I am not a rules girl.
What did your mom and your parents teach you when you were growing up about what girls could and couldn't do?
There is something that I notice I have a problem with that a lot of people do not, and it is the word lady. I have a problem with the word lady, because when I was growing up, there were so many things you couldn't do because it was unladylike. So girls could not do things. There were sports, there was the way you sat. You had to cross your ankles, you had to close your knees. Let's see, oh gosh, you can't whistle in public. That's unladylike. There's so many things, and I was like, I don't understand any of these things, and naturally I don't understand because they make no sense. So I don't know if my parents taught me or the culture taught me, So there were things like being very gregarious was unladylike. That's for boys. So many things were for boys. I was so mad. When I was a kid, the girls would walk around the playground talking or play with dolls, and the boys would have all the fun playing sports and doing fun things. So, of course I was playing with the boys. They should have known then.
Did the concept of you becoming a musician fit into that worldview?
No, my parents didn't. My mother didn't mind it. My mother was very artistic. My father didn't like it because he said, that's no life. That's no life. Again, don't know what you're talking about. Just sounds like blah, blah, blah to me. So he was very against that, and I did it anyway. And he always wanted me to have a backup, just in case. And I thought, well, just in case, if I'm planning for that, I'm never going to really do what I want to do. So I didn't But of course, it caused a rift between us. He used to say, if you're going to do that, then you're going to do it without my financial support. And out of 5 children, I was the only one that said, fine, see ya. He was actually very proud of that. I found out later that, I wouldn't call them collect. I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of saying that, oh, Liz needs my money after all. It's like, screw that.
Did you have other influential female role models when you were growing up?
I did. I had a number of them. It's funny, they were like a few of them were around books. I was a huge reader as a little kid, and I think a lot of it was escape, But regardless, my librarian in middle school was a huge influence on me. She kept bringing me books from home because I was at a higher reading level than the books they had in the library. She would give me certain things, and I would go through them, and we would talk about them, and then she would start bringing me books from home, and she was a huge influence on me. The woman that co-raised me with my parents, Ella, she was a black woman from Macon, Georgia, and that was my second mother. So she lived with us, thank God. So she was a wonderful influence. She was so loving, and took very good care of me. And she also had a love of comic books, so we would talk about comic books a lot. That was fun. She told a lot of stories, and I think she really influenced me on storytelling. Enabled me to hear the lilt when you're telling a verbal story. Who else? There was a woman at the bookstore. I used to hang out at the bookstore all the time, and she also, had a lot of camp counselors, mentors, people. I was a little bit more mature than, I'm not bragging, I'm just saying the way it was. I was a reader, I was really thinking about things that a lot of kids my age weren't really caring about or thinking about. So I would hang out with older people a lot, and they kind of allowed it because I wasn't a little kid, like I was more mature. So I had a lot of counselors at camp that were very influential. It was good.
Any musicians in your life?
Well, my father played the saxophone, and I started, my aunt, his sister, was a concert pianist, so I started piano lessons at 5. So she just took me, she lived down the street, and she took me over to her house, and we would have piano lessons. So that was the beginning of that. So yeah, I had musicians in my life. And I think, my parents thought it was pretty important that we all play an instrument. So, we all had an instrument growing up, but I stuck with it.
What's your definition of success?
This is that thing I work on every morning. Not to bring up my mother again, but my mother, every morning I would call her, and she would say, I just want you to be successful. I'm like, okay, you know what? First of all, I'm in a long-term relationship. I'm happy. I'm doing creative work that I love. We have enough money. I don't get what part of that is not successful. So there's a lot of different definitions of that word. And when I use the word being recognized in my industry as success, then I'm not there yet, and I'm still working toward that. When I use the word when I use the definition of all the things I just named, that's success. So I think that being satisfied in life is a good place to start. That's not been my area of expertise, but that's where I think I've changed a lot in the last year. And I've been happier in the last year once I realized all the good things I have, and use that as a springboard as opposed to using that as a club to beat myself up with. As the things I don't have. So I look at the things I do have, and I look at the things about me that I am very happy with. And that's always, and then I feel pretty good. And so success is that, as well as the other things about being acknowledged. And I recognize that need for acknowledgement comes from a feeling of not being seen, not being heard, as a kid. So there's a lot, and I put there's a lot of that in my film as well. You asked about what things have shown up, and there's a lot of that in the underpinnings of that film.
Has your perspective and your storytelling changed since you started to make these new discoveries?
It has a lot. It's deepened a lot of the storytelling. You know, originally, I mean, I was fourth out of 5 children, and I discovered very early on that making my siblings and my parents laugh was a way to get attention. So, you know, that was a thing for me, was, oh, I'm the funny one. But that only goes to a certain depth. And so I'd say as I've aged, you know, the depth has come in, and wanting to go deeper is something I've learned about. And the last year it's been less looking at the negatives of what went wrong and looking at what went right. I'm still looking at the depth, but I like to look at not so much why, but just about what is. And that's interesting too. And also looking at what is can be a problem as well, because then what's to come, you know? I like looking at what's to come as well.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to be an independent filmmaker?
There is something to not thinking too hard, not worrying about, do I know how, before you try. I am one of those people that had to read about it. I did the New York Marathon years ago, and I was not a runner. So I had to read 2 books on marathon running. I had to train for 8, well, you have to train anyway, but I trained for 8 months. And it was just something I was going to do because I thought I couldn't do it. And I thought, I want to do something I think is literally impossible. And I did it. But what I had to go through up here was to fight my own saying, you can't do that, you don't know enough about it. And you know, some people just do. A lot of guys do that. And I think, I hate to separate by gender, but a lot of times I think women think about it a lot before they go and do it. So I think getting the feet wet is a really good thing to do, and kind of just act like you know what you're doing and see how far that takes you. Because a lot of people don't know what the hell they're doing, and they just act like they do. And then stuff happens. So I think there's a lot to be said for not thinking too hard about stuff, just trying to mosey on out there.
What's your proudest career achievement so far?
On paper, the Emmy Award. And that's a big deal. It's a big deal. I feel like I have learned so much. So when I challenge myself, I feel the proudest. And so, for example, my first film was, can I just make a film? The second thing that I did was, can I just make it for cheaper? The third thing was, can I get my vision, can I actually get a cinematographer to understand what I'm going for, and let's get that and actually capture that. So from out here, it shows up there. And I was able to do that. You know, I did a whole series with Susan. They said, you know, use what you have. I've got a chef. So I did a whole series called Chef Tips with her. And just anything I could think of, you know, can I get this? She's very recognizable for her her bracelets and her rings and all that. And so I had been so sick of hearing her talk, I decided that I'm going to do this to music only. So can I do a bunch of chef tips with just from elbow to hand, just showing that, everything else in black, and not have her, you know, her face or her voice saying, here's what you do next. So that was a challenge, and I felt very proud of those. And now, you know, pinup is, can I do something dramatic? Can I do something a little more artistic and much deeper than Getting to Know You, which was pretty much pure comedy, and trying to be art-driven as well at the same time. And so each thing I attempt, I'm always looking to do something more than what I did last time, and each time I'm able to finish it, I actually feel very proud and accomplished. None of them turn out as well as I would like. It paves the way for the next.
Thanks for listening to the Passionistas Project podcast and our interview with filmmaker Liz Lachman. Keep an eye out for her short film Pinup at a festival near you. And be sure to subscribe to the Passionistas Project podcast so you don't miss any of our upcoming inspiring guests.